the other day, and that thing is absolutely amazing for quick sync.
Oh, good.
Oh, cool.
I think it's Linux 6.5 too. There's a bunch of performance improvements for the Arc GPUs. So if you haven't upgraded yet, you might see a nice little bump.
It's installed on a brand new computer with we got a Ryzen 7 5800X3D with 32 gigs of DDR4 and A770 in there.
Nice,
Plus,
good for
2
you.
gigabytes of NVMe, and I'm going to throw in another 1 or 2 terabytes NVMe,
Sure.
and I'm going to throw in a second 1 terabyte NVMe probably next couple days.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a nice. Well, it already is, but that's gonna be even nicer rig. I love having multiple storage. I love it so much.
It's a lot of flexibility. And not having both disks that have to be the OS disk. You know, whatever.
Right.
Like, just so many
you can
things
spread
you can
out
do.
the I/O. Love it. Well, boys.
How's
So
our Brentley doing? He's a little quiet today.
he is quiet.
Not complaining.
you mute
He's
him
probably
again?
doing a lot of show prep.
Just contemplating life, you know? The
I
usual.
think he's still trying to figure out his flight to get here, actually.
Yeah.
Looks handsome with those glasses, though.
Yeah.
You say flight.
Run?
He's talking about the speed.
Wait,
you'll
now
be
you're
driving.
not. Now you're not flying. Have we shifted back to driving again? You gotta get odds on this.
I think he's just going to run, actually.
How many
Just-
times have I said we need to get odds on this stuff? Could be making some stats.
Now's your
some
chance.
stat
Last
stakes right
chance.
now.
I'm going to put in 100 sats saying he makes it after the meetup.
Oh,
Big wager.
Ooh, he
Risky
wouldn't
bet.
do that to us.
Risky
I
bet.
mean, that has happened
It
one
has
Linux
happened,
Fest.
yep,
You know,
yep.
50% of my Linux Fests, so that's not a bad one.
Yeah,
gonna-
but the first one you showed up way early and slept in your car,
That is
So-
also true.
so that balances it out.
I was planning
The
to
average
sleep in your
is-
car again, so like you better show up.
Is there room for a third?
Right.
You know, I have an RV. You know, there's hotels, Wes. You're doing all right.
But
You
I've
can
slept
get-
in my car, and Brett and I's cars are twins, so I
That's
gotta
true.
try.
Oh
his.
yeah,
But I get the
Yeah.
cuddle with the shovel.
Yeah, there'll probably be some gear in the back.
socket set.
Yeah, yeah.
You see, I didn't bring a socket set, Brent, so, I mean,
What? You're doing it wrong,
kind of need that. You know.
Jeff. If
Yeah,
you
we
have a
could
car
always-
as old as your car and my car, you know you gotta.
We could always
Mine's
Just
2015.
bring the garage with you.
could always get a little car work done. Jupiter Garage is open. We'll have a notes machine ready to go.
Is that a promise?
If you want to, yeah.
Huh.
I'm always looking for an excuse to learn a little bit.
You know, I looked under my vehicle yesterday. Bad idea.
A depressing
Very
idea.
bad idea.
Focus on the
Remember
good
last
things.
time?
Focus on the good things.
It drives.
Weight loss. It's weight loss. Right? I mean, you're still going down the road and you're doing it with less material, so you're saving fuel. It's weight loss.
there is some like venting as well.
All you got to do is look at it and say, would Eric drive this? You know, from right? That's his name, right? Isn't it Eric? What am I-
The answer is yeah, most
Yeah.
of the time. Yeah, yeah.
So,
I need a set of vice grips then. Keep them in there all the times.
you guys probably saw the news this week. Well, it's funny. Last week I saw proposal to consider dropping Xorg support in the default GNOME session, right? Dun dun dun. And then 5 days later, the headlines were GNOME is dropping X11 support. So I don't really know what's going on, but Alteria, I always mispronounce it. Not out of disrespect, just because I'm an idiot.
And yet you still graciously show up.
Is here, yes, thank you, to chat with us about this. He pinged me in the Matrix and said, yeah, we could chat about this today. So what is really the story here? Are we looking at maybe GNOME 40-something in the future dropping X11 support?
It depends. There are like a couple of things with that. The main thing is that we are not dropping like X11 as in like X clients. So X Wayland will still be with us for like decades or so. We are what
So
I proposed
applications
was-
would run still. X applications would still run.
Yeah. So you can still have your motif application that runs like scientific whatever knows what, still working fine. What I proposed was that we start thinking about like removing the X11 session on itself, so we will only have like the Wayland session with X Wayland for applications.
Now, do you know, does the GNOME project have rough statistics on how many of the desktop sessions out there are actually using Wayland currently?
Statistics and like Linux is like.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, but any way to kind of roughly know? Because I like personally for me, it's been a couple of years now, but I still hear from audience members like, oh, I have to use X for various reasons.
So while we do not have like any statistics, I mean, I plan on like poking endless people for some statistics because they do have telemetry,
right?
And like they could probably give me some, but otherwise without having like opt-out statistics that are like the useful ones, because opt-in is like it has like a very big bias. It's you can't like get decisions out of that, right?
Yeah,
people running X probably don't opt in.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the other way around. So what we do know is that all the distributions have been like defaulting to the Wayland session for like years for NVIDIA, for anything but NVIDIA. So AMD and like Intel are like by default Wayland sessions usually, unless you go and change it, which the people that do change go back to X is like a lot less than the people that will default in, right? So for NVIDIA, however, it's like big of like some kind of like a pain point, because the 2 years I actually wanted to like propose this to drop the X11 like 2 years ago or so, but at the time there was like this news that even Ubuntu 22.04 would like default on Wayland for NVIDIA and all that, and like a week after they released the cut off the release candidate, NVIDIA made them switch back in between like the hard freeze of the distro. Yeah. So yeah, I had like hopes that we could like get away with just everybody defaulting to Wayland and like nuking X11 at some point later on, gradually. But the way that things have like come up at this point, it's like unless we do something, unless we find like some stick like push people towards Wayland, they will never like do the last bits of things. Like,
so is that kind of the thinking?
Get everything working properly?
I was wondering, is that like if you were to look at the motivation, is it because it's just time to move on with the transition? Is it a lack of maintainers for the X version of it? Is it like what how would you break it down?
So it's a combination of all of these things. There are like a lot of like interesting dynamics, because Gnome itself is not like a product on its own, right? The distributions are like in charge of like shipping the final thing to users and do all of that. So Gnome itself has like actually no pull on like driving any of these decisions. If it goes to like go to NVIDIA and say, can you please fix your drivers so everything works fine and all that. So at this point we are like maintaining 2 different sessions, so 2 different display stacks for like the past 10 years. And the X11 in itself, it's like abandonware. Nobody's using that for development. Nobody's like running with that. Nobody even uses NVIDIA on the development side of things, because they all like working desktops and they can't fix NVIDIA.
Right.
And nobody's like getting paid to deal with NVIDIA, right? So at some point we had like this carrot of Wayland, where you can do also things like zero copy screen recording and like remote desktop in a much better way than ever X could do, and all of these amazing things that we can do with the hardware encoders and all of that.
Right.
But at some point, it's not enough to like. Until you like pull the plug from Xort, the vendors, the third-party applications, the NVIDIA, or whoever else is doing stuff, they will never like go and like and fix their stuff to work on Wayland. Because why use that when the X11 session exists? Yeah,
and I think too there's a secondary effect of just sort of also with the Red Hat staffer who was one of the Nauvoo contributors resigning. And this transition, it kind of continues the community pressure for the NVIDIA free software driver to get developed. Not that it wouldn't happen, but it seems like if we continue down the correct this is the correct development path at the end of the day, regardless. And it may have the secondary benefit of continuing to apply pressure for an open source NVIDIA driver solution. Hopefully. But do you worry that the distros would just sort of patch around this for some of the distributions out there? Like I'm thinking about what's Mint going to do one day, or some of these distros that are trying to provide classic desktop environments that are, taking GNOME shell bits every so often and forking them, and eventually they're going to have a reckoning when it comes to X11 support. I mean, I know it's not your problem, but I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about these distributions downstream patching around it?
So, I mean, by distributions, I see like two different components, right? Because it's the distributions that ship GNOME that will have to like deal with it in a separate way.
Primarily your
and
Fedoras and your
also
Ubuntu.
the downstreams.
Yeah.
That build their own stuff on top of GNOME, right? So for elementary, I've briefly talked with them in a bit. For maybe in a year or so, they're hoping to like big Wayland capable as well, so there shouldn't be an issue with that. But at the same time, Mint also hard forks every GNOME component, and they just build on top of that. So they're in control of the whole stack, and they have ownership on top of it. So they also shouldn't have any issues. Well, but that's as long as like the Xorg support is to go. Like the code is there, it will still working. It will still keep working. Maybe the drivers will grace. Maybe some other graphic glitches will go unnoticed and they will fall on their side. But yes. So worst case is that you have to like fork a couple of extra GNOME components that you should be doing already. Like both Mint and Elementary are like doing that because again they are in control of what they ship, and they have to like if they need to like change something, they do that. They don't like solely rely on things that continue working, because a lot of these components are like private to GNOME, right? And that goes as far as to like Matter itself, the compositor. Matter is like a private component to GNOME shell, and both Elementary and Mint hard fork it, and like occasionally we rebase and apply patches and all of that. So there shouldn't be that much. I mean, it's a lot of like have to maintain more things, but at the same time, I don't expect it to be a big disturbance or catastrophic or anything else. The thing that I'm like most worried about is that once GNOME and KDE start defaulting to Wayland and like start dropping X11 completely, a lot of issues will go unnoticed, and the graphics stack will like beat rot to hell and all of that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be that sort of long tail of things we're going to discover too, I would imagine. And I guess so we can't say it's going to be a 100% smooth transition. But
no. And that's the thing. It will never be a smooth transition.
Yeah, exactly.
We were hoping for a smooth transition, and I mean, at some point we'll have to bite the bullet. And the sooner we do it, I think now the better, because the stars also align that KDE will default to Wayland in the next Plasma version, and like Red Hat internally is looking at removing Xorg, so might as well.
Yeah, and there's a pretty strong argument to be made that there's a limited amount of developer time and resources to go around. And so perhaps in the free software community, we just have to make these decisions from time to time, to help balance it out a little bit. And it's a pretty easy argument to make that maintaining support for two different windowing systems that are very, very, very different, and one that's just kind of a patch fest it takes time and overhead, and it takes focus.
Yeah, and there's like nobody paying to do that. There are some people that are paid to do that, but there's no any development or like maintenance going on. It's like abandonware. Nobody's using that, certainly, and apart from like some enterprise customers and at this point. Yeah,
that too.
How is it that something like Pipewire got through so easily in comparison? I mean, it's not as complex.
Yeah,
I don't think.
But
it seemed smooth sailing.
Pipewire had the advantage of like being able to implement the whole of Pulse Audio and also in Jack and keep working as is, which was still was a bit of a rough transition, but way less so.
There's a lot more API compatibility, right? That's a good point.
Yeah, we tried to do a lot of it with X Wayland, but at some point we have to like just switch, right? It's like X Wayland is great, everything almost works except all the things that are like you shouldn't be doing anyway, like having a global coordination system, global position and coordination system on the windows, and like patching weird holes and have every application know your keystrokes. So yeah,
we have a It's easy to understate all the stuff we are getting now that, we are in a Wayland world where more things are working. A lot of edge cases, sure, but I don't know. I'm pretty grateful for it. Especially for how long we kind of all thought, like, when are we actually going to get to Wayland? Brent, have you actually switched?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. Do you remember a couple episodes ago, Chris was like, hey, we got a pick for you. You can like see whether you're on Wayland or not with the XIs and stuff, right?
Yes.
So I ran it and I was like, oh, I'm actually still using X. Why am I doing that? And I realized it's because I use a screen shotting application to record. I guess it's like mini screencast to record like when I find bugs. I can use, actually record the bug happening on my system, which I find really helpful for filing bugs and stuff. And at the time that I installed this system, which was, I don't know, like a year and a half ago, something like that, it just keeps rolling. So I keep forgetting. I guess I wanted to capture a bug and I switched over just to use the application that I knew, and I just never switched back. And I felt so embarrassed a couple episodes ago, Chris, when you had the XI's suggestion. And I was like, oh, what am I doing?
It's a handy
and so
way
it's
to
interesting
figure it out.
because I've noticed a few it's a handy way to figure out that your Brent doesn't know what he's talking about. And it turns out I'm having a few like bugs in KD that have to do with like, moving windows around and stuff like that. And I realized there's nobody paying attention to fixing those. I was like waiting. I was like, maybe they'll fix it. But I think it's just like,
You're the guy.
nobody's actually doing what I'm doing.
You're the guy. Yeah.
I don't want to be the guy.
You got to get your bug submitter out. Just, one night, make yourself a fire, feed the cats, sit down and file a bug.
That reminds me of the story of how Debian ended up defaulting into Wayland. For at some point, they I think it was like either Debian 10 or 11. They updated something, and the new default was just Wayland, the GNOME session, and they didn't notice until way past the hard freeze and the point of no return. And so they shipped with that because it was like way past the shipping the freeze date. And afterwards, so many people just starting using Wayland by default without even noticing.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I don't think I have a single system except for the one right here in the studio that's using X, and I think it's been that way for 3 years. And I think the biggest accomplishment I felt like the real like milestone for us was when we got the OBS machine, full Wayland, all open source video drivers. Just
there were some things, we had to rethink some of our workflow because we just sort of hadn't ingrained all those changes.
And like we were using, X11's lack security model to like do window captures and stuff like that. There had to be proper APIs and stuff, but OBS added support right around the time we needed it. And this thing from, we should do an update today.
Yes, we should.
But this thing's been running on Wayland with OBS in production now for a while, and it's working great.
It does make me think, I have a couple coworkers who, they use Linux and they have Linux dev machines, and they kind of tend to keep them, everything's containerized. So they tend to keep stuff on like the LTS, and they both got off, I think 18 only kind of recently onto 22.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe they were on 20. Either way, they had kind of switched over to like a more Wayland-based setup only recently. So they were still running into stuff where like there's still Chrome options that had to be like tweaked to get like screen sharing just right. I forget everything. So it wasn't like perfect, but I think both of them did manage to get, they got through that, and it is all working. I don't think either of them reverted.
Okay. Yeah. There's a transition there. In fact, that's kind of our pre-show. Boys, are we ready to record? How you feeling? Any biz we have to attend to before we start? I haven't put an intro in. I have a kind of a pre-show, and I thought like a line for either one of you.
Yeah.
Whoever wants it. You want it, Brent? Oh, you want a rock pit? You want a Rochambeau for it?
I'm okay. Just default losing on that one.
Oh,
winning.
Yeah,
what is
give
it?
it to Brent.
Damn it.
okay. There you got it.
He looks feisty, so let's say he looks
Oh
prepared.
no.
He was a little spicy this morning in our chat, wasn't he? He was a little spicy this
Was
morning.
I?
Yeah.
Well, which
we
part?
don't need to bring it up on air, but
Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
I'm just talking about when I was generating AI images. Somebody had a few. Somebody was claiming things, and I just, you know, you know what I'm talking about now. All right. Yeah.
Yes. Let's not talk about that.
Brent will bring the art next show.
Onesies, you know.
So we are not doing Coda Radio, right? Right.
Correct.
Okay. So I should probably come up with an intro for this show. is
If
what
we
you're
are,
saying?
Mike is late.
Why? I'm just kind of taking my T's here. What do you think of that as an intro? I don't know if you're watching me, but I think that works, right? I don't need to have that in there, but I think we're gonna
I
have
wonder what you mean by that.
I think we're gonna have a crowd on Sunday. I think I'm gonna invite people down for LUP on Sunday.
Okay. Great.
So for people that are coming to Linux Fest, we'll sort it out. I think Saturday at the dinner when we have an idea of how many. Because you know how it works is, at best we could have a couple of people in here and then most people in the living room.
Right.
So
You usually regret it.
yeah.
But yeah, this should be a smaller group.
Well, it's an
see.
interesting phenomenon that happens
Yeah.
too. There is, you get here and you're like, oh, well, this is like a townhouse that's just some guys hanging out recording podcasts. It's not like some cool, like awesome, like radio studio. You don't get more impressed with us when you come here. What you do is you're either like turned off. You're like, God damn, I can't believe they pull it off with all this. Like you're either depending on which route you take. And some folks take oh my God, I'm never. So it's a risk.
I don't know who those folks are, but maybe they don't belong here anyways.
No, they happen. They happen. All right. Are we ready, boys?
I think so.
Ready.
I sense a sense of readiness.
I like that we have some dog audience this week.
That's right. They have a lot of thoughts on the new Ubuntu release.
Brantley, how you feeling? You got your finger over the record? Yeah, all right. Okay. Hey, wait, Jeff, let me double check. Say something on your line. I want to.
I'm saying something.
Oh, I
I'm
don't have. Oh, yeah, I didn't arm it. That's why.
trying to keep
There we go.
Good
my
catch.
distance
Oh,
correct.
good check. Disk space.
Also
This
a good
space.
check.
Yeah, it's always good to check. I think we're good though. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, record. Hello, Space Drew. We have an extra track this week with Jeff.
True.
So make sure you catch the Jeff track.
Hello, Drew.
Brent's got a connection from hell this morning. He moved his space link, and now Elon's mad about it. So
Hey,
I think they deprioritized
So
Canadians.
that's why
So
he
you
was
can't,
driving
like-
north.
Yeah.
He was going after Brent.
Yeah. Jeff saw Elon on his
Makes
way up.
sense.
Contaminating all
He's
the
coming.
satellites.
Hey, he's in the Cybertruck. He can make it to where you're at.
Not just a Cybertruck, but a manufacturing plate Cybertruck, which how many people are driving around a manufacturing plate Cybertruck on I-5? How many people, Wes?
Not too many.
Not too many people. All right, let's do our 4 count. So, Jeff, you jump into Mumble Room as well. Here we go. And let's double check our soundboard. See, it wasn't loud enough. We need more
You gotta
soundboard.
tune that just right.
Yeah, especially the horns.
Yeah.
Is it
It's a plane.
is it crashing?
Slowly
Like
crashing.
I feel like I can hear a bearing going out in that plane or something. You hear that, like that whistle? Like that doesn't sound right, man.
Normally we're a little jealous. We're not out in the planes.
Not that
We're
one.
not- Yeah.
Not that one. Yeah. Woof. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. All right, now let's get ourselves some room caps. So everybody stay silent for a moment. No breathing, sneezing, coughing, typing, or farting. In 3, 2. Yeah, the dog noise. We should capture that dog noise.
is that a dog snore?
I
What
think
is going
no,
on
it's
over
just
there?
that's just a very polite registration of I'm getting a little bored. This is getting old, Dad. Isn't there something to sniff?
How long have you been podcasting already?
Can we go sniff something? Is this over yet? Like Levi, man, he 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, he's done. He wants to go home, and he lets me know consistently. He doesn't do that. What he does is a stare. It's fine. It's fine. So we have some doggos in the studio, and I love it. Okay, here we go. It looks like within the next release or two of the Fedoras and the other distros, we're all going to be running Firefox on Wayland by default. It's heading upstream, but if you're trying out Ubuntu 23.10, the Firefox snap is actually Wayland by default already. So you're already in the future.
I guess the question, though, Chris, is did you even notice Ubuntu's Firefox snap was using Wayland?
Hello, friends, and welcome back to your weekly Linux talk show. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
And my name is Brent.
And in studio, it's listener Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Welcome, and congratulations on the mad dash up to the studio for Linux Fest Northwest Eve. It is our episode before the big Linux Fest Northwest Mini Fest, and coming up on the show today, I think Ubuntu may have turned a corner. At least I'll make my case and see if you guys agree. And we'll also share our thoughts on the new 23.10 release, shipping with Gnome 45 and a bunch of other goodies under there. We got Jeff in studio with us. Then we'll round it out with some great feedback, some picks, a real handy pick, and a lot more. So let's say good morning to Tailscale. Head on over to tailscale.com/Linux Unplugged. That's the magic URL that gets you 100 devices for free. That's not a trial. You can just use it. I'm on the free plan. I have been for like over a year. I love it. 100 devices is all I need, and Tailscale is such a great solution. It's a mesh VPN powered by
Wayland.
That's right. Tailscale.com/Linux Unplugged. Go there, support the show. And before we get into everything, let's take a minute and say time-appropriate greetings to our virtual lug. Hello, Mumble Room.
Chris, Wes, Brent, and Jeff. Hello all.
Hello. How's it feel, Jeff? You're on this side of the microphone.
I almost said hello.
You could have.
Almost.
I think we would have it would have been normal. That's right. We wouldn't have thought anything weird about it. So Jeff's up here because next weekend, as we record, so this is the 15th of October, next weekend is the Mini Fest at Linux Fest Northwest, and Brent has the first session of the day, of course, so that should be great.
That's wild.
So
I can't even believe that.
We're going to get up there nice and early, at least some of us are. And then JB is hosting the dinner in the evening, which I hope we can all make it for. And if you're going to make it out there, audience, please do RSVP so the restaurant can plan ahead. That's all at meetup.com/Linux Fest Northwest. It's going to be a smaller, mini fest, but It's going to be nice.
Still looking forward to it, that's for sure.
Yeah. And the lead up between now and then, like always, is just going to be slammed full of projects. Just going to be a bunch of stuff we're going to be working on. We'll be razzled and fried by the time, just, to stay with tradition.
Of course. I don't think we know how to do Linux Fest any other way.
It wouldn't be proper.
Can you give listeners like a little hint of maybe an item or two you have in mind, Chris?
Jeff, what are your... So I've made a whole list of jobs for Jeff while he's here because I didn't want him to get here without anything. And then, of course, I went overboard. Nextcloud Task, by the way, has been excellent for collecting all the ideas as they strike. And then I prioritize them in there. And it's a good little app, I have to say. And then you can sync it if you use DavX. You can sync it to your phone, and then on Android, use task.org to actually have a nice local task app to interface with the Nextcloud Task backend. So I can throw things on that task board for Jeff just as anything that crosses my fancy little mind. Oh, yeah, I'll throw it on there. It's real easy.
One of the two of you seems more excited about this than the other.
I have a smile on my face.
So you got any examples for us of what's on that list?
Oh, we have some Lady Jupes things.
Oh, some?
Some, mostly, actually, with the highest priorities.
Yeah.
A couple other things like the studio sensor. I haven't closed that one, but I don't think I will yet.
But I think it's close, right?
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
I think we'll leave that one open. In general, your notes are fantastic, and
I try.
It's hilarious. I actually really like the interface here. I haven't used Nextcloud tasks yet, and I think it's really, really slick. But yeah, I closed out the lights in the kitchen. That one worked out good.
It's great because, Jeff has a knowledge domain that is adjacent to mine. So there's a lot of where I can kind of come up with what I want to do in Jupes, like for a sensor, for lighting or wiring, but Jeff knows how to actually do it, And longtime listeners will probably remember that forever Jeff helped us get one of our first spots hooked up with full power for Jupes, right. And so it's always great when he visits. It's like things always get better. Things always improve. It's fun, and he's a pretty good guy to hang out with too. So there'll be, Brian, you got to get down here and hang out with us because we got a lot of fun we're doing.
I'm clearly missing out.
Yeah.
Clearly.
You just jump in the car after the show. It'll be fine. So while we were getting together and getting ready for Linux Fest, Canonical released Ubuntu 23.04. And this is the last interim release before the big LTS. So, this is always where if you're going to do something, you got to get it in there now. This is where you try stuff for the last chance to try things. And so we got Linux 6.5, and that has Wi-Fi 7 support, MIDI 2.0 compatibility, Ryzen laptops, CPUs and GPUs see some bug fixes around suspend and resume, and just improved graphics performance. Intel Arc users also see improvements, starting with Linux 6.2, but now when you combine the Ubuntu release of Linux 6.5 with the Mesa version that Ubuntu is shipping, on 2304, you're going to see some pretty nice Arc improvements for graphics. Also in this kernel release is an improvement to Extended 4. It's actually
is that old thing
still getting some work. And
I couldn't believe this when I read it.
You know what? That improved NTFS driver landed too, so you need that. That's in there. Firefox is a snap. It's Firefox 118.
Oh, I was just going to say, we were just Windows users last week. So NTFS, nice NTFS support.
True.
In dual booting environments, if you have multiple types of things on your network, it's just nice to see for a very widely deployed distro.
How quickly I forget. Network Manager 1.44 is in there, NetPlan as well, and Pipewire 0.7. And Pipewire 0.3.79, which that version will become more relevant in the following weeks. And then, of course, the big headline item in here is GNOME 45.
Bum, 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 bum.
What is it?
I'm sorry, GNOME 45.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
And this is one of the first distros to land. Of course, I think Tumbleweed already did, but one of the first regular shipping distros to land with GNOME 45. And Canonical always likes to add a little extra spice to the pie, so they have added a couple of new things in here, including a quarter tiling extension. And it's sort of like the Pop Shell tiling, but watered down a little bit. Maybe a little more average user, not so much power user. And you have some settings in GNOME settings in the Ubuntu desktop area where you can tweak it. I played around with it, and it's functional.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's better than no tiling support.
Right.
By far and away, I think.
Yeah. Something about it doesn't feel native. And I wish I had a better explanation. But it feels a little clunky. Like it's not of the system. Like it's overlaid on top of the system somehow. And I don't know why it feels that way. But the experience doesn't feel as smooth as if the GNOME project were to implement it itself. It feels a little rougher.
Which, as an extension on top, I suppose that's probably how you should expect things, though some extensions obviously don't feel that way.
But as you said, I'd rather have it than not. So it's there. Files.
I appreciated the group tiling function. Did you guys notice that?
I don't think I played with
that. You tile two things beside each other and you go to some other application. If you bring any one of those two tiled applications back, it brings them both back at the same time. They're calling it group tiling. And actually, I thought that was super useful. And I'm like, wait a second. I think this is a feature I've wanted for a long time, just never found anywhere.
That is solid.
So that's something neat to play with.
Also, obviously there's stuff, like Pop, and it's fairly easy, and there have been previous extensions you can get to introduce tiling to your desktop if you want to. But assuming this all makes it into the next LTS, that's just a wider audience, between Windows having some more of these features and then now like the premier Linux on the desktop distro having them, maybe that will, remind people that we can expect a little more out of our window management, even if it's just sort of basic tiling.
It also makes Mac OS's window management features look old. Yes. Come on, Apple, figure it out. We saw a speed Another thing while we're talking about things they've added is a really nice dynamic workspace indicator in the top left corner. That's just a little blobby thing that moves around as you move between your virtual workspaces.
It looks nice even if you don't know what it does, and then when you figure out what it's actually doing for you, it's even better.
That was my exact impression. At first I thought it was just like the activities overview or something. I'm like, oh, it's a new button. And then I realized it had this cool little animation as I slid between my desktops, and I'm like, oh, I actually almost always turn on a desktop indicator extension.
Yeah, it's just nice to know where you are.
Yeah. And so
I found it pretty intuitive as well. I was like, I'm just going to scroll this thing. And I just scrolled my mouse wheel, and sure enough, it did exactly what I expected it to. So that was a nice little touch.
That is nice. The quick settings menu now includes keyboard backlight toggling. The quick settings menu is really getting to a good place in GNOME 45. And they've added a quick settings menu Super S keyboard shortcut to bring it up. They've got the new version of Files in there that is a lot faster, quote, significant speed boost is what they say. To me, it just seemed to work well. And then the thing that's probably one of the second big headline features in 2310 is the TPM-backed full disk encryption, which they are labeling as an experimental feature. And they say this feature eliminates the need for manual passphrase entry at boot. Instead, the TPM securely manages the decryption key, while the traditional passphrase-backed disk encryption remains available, of course, and is probably the one that's better supported at this point.
Yeah, I was interested to note that they're using, like, this is something that like Ubuntu Core can do already, I guess. And so it's using the same mechanism where Snapd is sort of responsible for in managing the full disk encryption, and then it actually uses the kernel snap that's sort of deployed in those environments, which does mean right now it can't support like stuff that might need NVIDIA, for instance, because you need to load extra stuff into your kernel, and this is using like a signed, approved secure root compatible generic kernel. So there are some limitations if you are going to try it.
Good to know.
Yeah. Also make sure, with anything like that, you might have to be more aware that since it's tied to your hardware instead of something
right,
make sure you have backups.
Yeah, I was curious about the use case in that regard, Wes. Like, at least my personal use case is, my laptop travels with me all over the world, it seems. And if I lose it, then that's like one more extra protection against anybody just getting my files, for instance. I'm curious about the TPM use case, because then the user's not entering anything. And presumably it just sort of gets past that step because the hardware's in place. So can you explore like a use case that would be handy in that for this function?
I'm not sure. Okay, I guess, what is your question there?
Well, he's saying if you don't have to enter the passphrase, and then somebody steals your laptop and they power it on and it auto decrypts, what have you gained? Why would you use this over requiring a passphrase at boot every time? And I'm wondering if we're missing something. You got an idea, Jeff?
Yeah, I think that part of this that's coming is to allow things like PIN unlock, similar to Windows.
Definitely.
So you don't need this long password or passphrase.
Yeah.
I mean, this still the same question comes up. It's easier to, think of somebody's PIN or brute force a PIN, even if it's 4 digits yourself.
Right.
But I think that's kind of where they're going here. You can use other things like biometrics or a PIN and then rely on the back end of the TPM for the full encryption. And
then obviously it would still protect data at rest if the drive were to be removed from the system at some point in the future. Then obviously the data would be protected then. And you would still have the credentials of the operating system that would protect them. And I think you have to have a chain of custody that's all secure. So I think if you were to boot a third-party operating system that didn't have a signed key, I don't think you could decrypt the data.
Yeah, so that's where this is, the TPM-backed stuff in this design is explicitly to counter what they call the evil maid attack, where, you've left your laptop in your hotel room, you go down to dinner, and then someone's in your room and can tamper it and, say, install a keylogger or other things onto your machine so that the next time you boot it up, you're not booting up what you booted up last time. And so that's where this full disk encryption ties together with the sort of TPM-backed verification steps. So that, like, if you change anything about what's booting, then it can't decrypt the drive. So it's not quite the same as, like, manual sort of full disk encryption that especially Linux users are used to. But a lot of this sort of came about from the Windows side, where they have BitLocker, and you might think like in an enterprise deployment where you don't necessarily, you're not trying to trust that your employees are keeping this super secure encryption setup, but you get better protection than a not encrypted drive built in without them having to have extra fuss about how to use their computer.
Yeah, it definitely makes more sense in the enterprise scenario where the user logging in is enough authorization, but you want the data protected at rest. And yeah, I would probably be more inclined to use something that didn't require a passphrase to make the system boot, because I want my systems to boot all the way up to the desktop without my interaction.
It's interesting to see more use of the TPM. Like, they've existed in machines for a long time.
And I feel like it's been like hesitant in Linux to use this. And now we're kind of seeing just Linux vendors lean in.
And then, there are other things you can do if your operational model supports it. Like, you can have the TPM sort of be responsible for your SSH keys.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could say, it's like you're not doing this one key. You're like, oh, I'm blessing that particular machine to log in.
Oh, man. Huh. Okay.
It's a bold new world.
It is.
Whether we like it or not.
One we're slowly but surely going to end up in. Then we also have one of their new, one of two, we'll talk about both of them, but App Center is a Flutter-based app that Canonical has built. You can browse and search, install snaps and debs. And it's pretty good, really. I wanted to come on here and complain about it using snaps because I'm still, I still prefer Flatpaks, but the availability was great. The process was smooth. I could do the thing that I have a minimum requirement of these app centers. Let me queue up multiple things in a row because I'm blasting through this thing like I'm, moving like Superman, man. I click, boom, click, boom, click, boom, click, boom. And I don't want to sit there and do each one individually. And it supports that. And honestly, the UI is clean and minimal, but it gets the job done. And once things are installed as snaps, I really tried to notice that they were snaps. And it just really wasn't an issue.
Yeah, I think, it's it has been an issue in the past, and we've complained about it for sure.
Yeah, previous releases, like the first one that was the Snap Firefox was crap.
And then I think that's left sort of, then there's for users who peek under the covers, you see that, and then it sort of rubs you the wrong way, right? You're like, oh, it's no longer really the system I understand. It's using this new technology that I've grown not to fully trust. But at the end of the day, at least from a desktop user perspective, if it just works, if it gets out of my way and I don't have to care the containerization technology, I mean, it could be an app image back there. And if I have the tools to administer it, if I have the ability to connect things, or if I just don't have to think about it and it works, okay, how can I object?
I ran into a tiny issue that made me question this when I tried to open the App Center, and also, and just nothing happened. And then I had to click on it again, and then it booted. So I know we've seen that style of issue with snaps a couple of years ago. And I wonder if that had something to do with it. I mean, maybe it's just me because it seems like the screwed up ethos seems to follow me around when I'm trying new software. But that was a little indication that made me go, I wonder about this.
I feel like what Wes just said is really wise because if you put aside your snap prejudice and you just evaluate it at its functional level, in 2310, it's there, I think. I don't know if I would say from any previous Ubuntu release review where I felt like it was there, especially with Firefox. I felt like that was a step backwards. But we're there now. And when you bring together their new App Center to manage this with the experience of using snaps, it is just as functional and just as performant as Flatpak seemed to be for me. And so I really have to give them credit that they stuck with it and it's there. But in order to really appreciate it, you have to put everything about snaps aside. Because like you, Brent, the second I have a problem, I'm like, oh, is this because it's a snap? Is this not working because it's a snap? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, right? But if you can stop thinking like that and just think about it from is this functional standpoint, I think they got there. Zero indication that this is a Flutter app. The way I would describe the App Center is clean, minimal, performant, functional. I wouldn't describe it as slow. I wouldn't describe it as an Electron feeling experience. It feels like a native application. If I didn't know it was Flutter, there would be no way for me to kind of suss it out using it. So that's a win, I think.
It's on one level, whether you like it or not, and maybe you can make the classic sort of, Canonical go in their own way and their, with their own customized stack and such. But yeah, they're investing in sort of newer tools like the installer, which I'm sure we'll be talking about. And so far, they feel nice. And yeah, they're way better. They're way different class than an Electron app.
And for good or for bad, you could really kind of steelman this either way. Unique. They are value add stuff that is unique again to Ubuntu.
Plus, it's pushing on that Flutter actually, if these are deployed and Flutter makes it wide into, actually deployed LTSs, that's a good lobby for continued Linux desktop support in the Flutter toolkit.
Yeah.
If Flutter takes off in other environments, developers who might have used it for mobile, maybe that's one more step to be able to target the Linux desktop in a non-Electron way than learning Qt or GTK.
I mean, using these tools, I would prefer the apps be written in Flutter over Electron. And when we saw the announcement, and we covered the announcement on the show that they were going to be using Flutter to develop a new installer, I believe our reaction was something on the lines of, well, okay, we'll wait and see. But if they nail this, they could, with these tools, prove this works and inspire other people to develop this. And people that haven't been using Linux for very long might forget. But when Ubuntu first came out, and I know you guys know this, when Ubuntu first came out, they set a direction and a tone that caused all these third-party developers to adopt GTK and Python and develop things in the spirit that would work best in the Unity desktop environment. And there was really kind of a trendsetter of how things should be built. And what the developers were looking for, what I learned by talking to them, is they were looking for an avenue to take that said, if you want to develop an application on Linux, use this toolkit, package it in this format. You can ship it in the Ubuntu App Store. You do it this way, and you can use this for the indicators.
Here's an end-to-end example of all the stuff you might want to do.
Exactly.
That isn't the actual thing that your app is doing.
And as a result of that, we got developers creating applications for desktop Linux that we haven't really seen. And we're actually starting to see it pick up again, but it's been years. And what Canonical could be doing is beginning that process once again by creating some of their most important tooling, like the installer, like the App Center and others that are based on Flutter, that look good, that are functional, that are well-performant, that do things that maybe other applications can't, which we'll get to in a little bit. And they set a new standard, and they just do that by leading, which is what Shuttleworth did when he came to desktop Linux and he said, you don't need 3 email clients, you don't need 6 web browsers, you don't need 7 different text editors. Pick one of the best and ship it as the default, and we'll do it on top of Debian. And that was a big deal, and it set a trend. And I think, if they can keep at it and they keep making it good, there will be developers, maybe not the diehard free software developers, but there'll be developers that are maybe one ecosystem out, that are just a little outside our orbit, that will be monitoring this and see real results in code that's on GitHub that they can use. And I think it's going to result in more applications.
Here's OpenSO.
Oh, actually, Wes, before we move on, do you want to mention maybe the fonts and the Raspberry Pi 5 support?
Now, this is a small thing. I'm curious if you guys noticed. 2310's actually making a little bit of a change to the old fonts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, swapping Deja Vu for Noto, if you were using those before.
Don't think I noticed. But I would notice if they sucked, and they didn't suck, so.
Right, yeah. I think maybe it just falls under sort of, it's like the layers on top of Gnome. It's maybe goes along with using Flutter and this, having a full packaged experience is the polish layer,
Mm-hmm.
There's been more focus there, and it seems like it's coming together. Another little thoughtful change that snuck in is there's added patches on 2310 to make sure that the new GPU in the Raspberry Pi 5, as much as we badmouthed it.
No, that's good to see.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Right?
Yeah.
People use Ubuntu. Raspberry Pi 5 is going to be big.
And the timing's good.
Just work.
The Pi 5s could be, the early orders, the Pi 5s could be arriving in the next few weeks. 2310 just came out. Yeah.
Try it out. Let us know.
Wanted to mention that the Noto font is the Google font, so it's familiar.
Yeah.
Probably why you didn't notice.
Yeah, I use it on other distros, like ones where I have to choose my fonts. I generally go that route, so I'm pretty adept to it. But I think it is noteworthy, and I'm glad you pointed it out, Wes, because often Ubuntu, above all, had some of the best fonts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when they make a change, it is notable.
Shows they're thinking about it.
Oh, time to go to Linode. Check in on the boys over at Linode, see how they're doing, and the girls and the gals. Linode.com/unplugged. And spin yourself something up. I don't know. Maybe just use the object storage for backup. It's really nice. I'm really impressed. Now using it in production for several weeks with office hours, we put the translation files up there. We put the transcription files up there. We put the chapter files up there. We put the chapter image files up there. We put the source RSS feed, all being served by Linode Object Storage. I love it. It's just so great. And then I have different desktop clients from Nautilus to Transmit to FileZilla that all just speak S3. So you just point them at Linode's S3 compatible object storage, and you're just uploading the assets using, I use Nautilus which is great because when I'm like generating images, I'm sitting there renaming them in the file manager, and then I get it all, just highlight it, go over to the object storage, drop them in there, boom. It's so cool.
Right?
Anyways,
And you're in control. There's no lock-in. There's no worry. It just works.
Mm-hmm. All right, Brentley, we'll come back and it'll be you. So linode.com/unplug, Joe. Head on over.
Now, I decided this time to take Ubuntu 23.10 for a little spin in a VM. I didn't throw it on some crazy hardware that Alex left for me this time around. I think we did touch on a lot of what I did like. I mentioned the tiling was like refreshing and actually worked really well for me and was a beautiful implementation. Workspace indicator we mentioned as well. That sort of stood out to me as like kind of a neat little tiny feature.
Nice to have.
Nice to have, yeah. I did also already mention that I had a couple applications sort of stutter when I first tried to launch them, but after that they were super speedy and behaved well, I gotta say. Now, I did kind of leave things idle there while I was chatting with you boys, and GNOME 45 just like crashed on me, just sitting there doing nothing with almost nothing open.
This morning, actually, while we were prepping for the show, right?
Yeah. I was so surprised. Like, it took me aback a little bit. I was like, what? This hasn't happened in a long time. And
wasn't there like something to do with clutter in the error message too or something? I was surprised to see that, but yeah.
I admit to not having dove completely into the error message, but it just kind of like took the entire, at least the user experience of the system down. It just took a log out, log back in to kind of get things back up and running. So it wasn't, you
didn't lose data
in that sense. I mean, I didn't really have any data in there, so
just our chat.
Yeah, right. But it was surprising, and I guess I of course sent the report and stuff like that. But other than that, I just actually got back to that feeling of thinking, GNOME's getting features that I think maybe I should try again. It's been a while that I've given it a spin for a while, and so I'm going to keep an eye on it. I think in the next couple of months, find some stability, and who knows, maybe
see if some updates fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
What
new.
was the most, let's say, noteworthy elephant in the room, maybe is the other thing to say, is I struggled to find an ISO that I wanted to run. I wanted to try the new installer like you two boys. You guys got in there early and got to try some things that I didn't get to try. And the reason for that is it's so unfortunate, but there was some issues with the ISOs that Canonical put out, and there was some malicious user translations that happened, and so they quickly pulled the ISOs. And it has been a few days, and we didn't see those ISOs get replaced. And I'm curious to know what's going on there. It feels like, unfortunately, maybe they're losing a little bit of their like excitement because, they just put out this release a few days ago and then all of a sudden they had to pull things.
Right.
I know you guys got some beta ISOs, but did you look at the website since? Like they have Jeff, I know you went to download and there's just a gray bar that it doesn't even allow you to download it. If you know where you're looking, you can find some legacy ISOs, which is what I used, and it worked perfectly fine. It's what we're used to in the past. So it just doesn't have the modern installer, the Flutter-based installer. But
I also couldn't find the live.
Jeff, how was that experience? Was that challenging?
A little, yeah. I also couldn't find like the live installers or just the live desktops because I wanted to run it on my laptop on the hardware via USB 3 instead of doing a full install and wiping my system as well. And couldn't find the live anywhere for anything. I found like ARM64 and a couple things and the server installs, but not the live. But I did find them, of course, the cdimage.ubuntu.com, where they have the whole list of all of the releases and the nightly, the daily, the full 23.10 version, everything. Most of it's there. There are still like the main Ubuntu 23.10 is still missing just the desktop release.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, did they not think it would take this long either? They did put some stuff. It's not like it is grayed out as you said, but if it was this long, you wonder if you maybe would make that legacy a little more prominent.
Well, and how are those translations not in every release? That kind of set me aback. I mean,
it's because it was translations just for the new installer.
Oh, I see. Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah, I was surprised that it took. It's as we record, it's not actually fixed yet. When I heard about it, I thought, this will be a few hours just based on their previous track record.
I thought about trying to build my own ISO. I still had the beta and stuff, so it was fine. I could still play with the new installer, but just going around for the various levels of instructions, it seemed like a lot of them were all, I wasn't convinced that it would include the new stuff just from those old instructions. So it makes me wonder, like, are there bits here where the new installer version isn't as tied into everything, and maybe there are still manual actions to, like, you could rebuild the legacy ISO easily, but is it still some steps to get to the new one? I don't know.
My positive spin on it is that, Canonical leadership looked at this. They said, this is a problem, but the legacy ISOs are available. We don't need to have our staff work through the weekend. We'll fix it on Monday. If it was an LTS, maybe they'd have a different take, but it's an interim release. It gets downloaded by, a percent of the LTS users. So maybe they just decided to let their staff actually have a weekend. And if that's the case, I'm all for it.
Makes me wonder what, if anything, will change in the process for the LTS. Because, this would be worse for sure if it was the LTS release.
I'll tell you what impressed me. I'll tell you what, so like Wes, I had an ISO from days ago before this whole thing was discovered. So I decided to do one more install over the weekend so I could try out ZFS on root and all that kind of good stuff. And when I got up and running, I was connected over Ethernet, so I had an internet connection from the beginning. When I chose my language and my keyboard layout, the next screen in the new installer is typically, would you like the minimal install, which is the new default, or would you like to do the full install with everything? Instead of getting that screen, I got, your installer's out of date. Would you like to update the installer?
I got that too.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is. And so I said, all right, let's see how this goes. This is probably going to break. Go ahead. Update my installer. Sure. And I hit the button and it, pulled down some stuff in the background. And a few minutes later, it restarted itself and it was fine.
This is another case of the, I think this is something that maybe they wouldn't have been as confident, or it would be enabled so easy if it wasn't a new Snap delivered app.
Yeah. I think it's just a Snap upgrade in the background.
Right. So you can roll back. You've got the guarantees that Snap systems provide.
But I do kind of also agree with your take, Brent, that it's a little unfortunate that it comes out on a Friday or Thursday, whatever it was. Us Linux geeks want to play with it over the weekend, and we want to try the new installer, and it's like it's the perfect window of opportunity to try this, and unfortunately you can't get the ISO right now, so it kind of kills that hype roll a little bit. But,
which is just unfortunate for them, because I feel like the last couple of releases they've been, on a roll, getting some cool new features out, and it's just bad timing. I'm sure it'll get fixed this week there, but stay tuned, I guess.
Now, with every Ubuntu release, there's always the flavors, the traditional flavors. And Jeff, you decided to just give a quick look at Budgie this week, and I was just kind of, peeping, looking over your shoulder, and it's a pretty fine looking default desktop. I thought, did he customize this? And I realized that was your fresh install.
Yeah, I haven't really touched anything. I haven't used Budgie since Solus was on everybody's mind.
Oh yeah,
way back
same,
when.
Same.
And at least, hey, now I can choose my desktop wallpaper. That was something I could not do back on Solus when playing with it. And it's been a long time, clearly, and I am not a Budgie person, but I wanted to play with this. I want something completely different, completely new. I quite like it. It's very fast. That was the first thing I thought. And I'm running on USB. It's USB 3, but everything's been very fast, including the Firefox Snap. I verified that is the same. That didn't even notice until you guys mentioned it. Many of the features and things you were all talking about that are in Gnome, some of them are here because it's still GTK, and some of them are not. I am not on Wayland, for example. I am on X11 still.
Okay.
And
what's your graphics?
It's AMD.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's just for the installer. It could be.
I'm the live session. Yes.
I am on
live.
Okay.
Yeah.
So possibly if I did the full install, I'd be on Wayland, because I expected to have touch swipes, like 3-finger swipes, stuff like that, to get around the desktop environment.
It's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got that on X11 with Plasma, so I kind of expected it here, especially on Budgie, but possibly not just on the X11 system.
Right.
Otherwise, it's been fine. I fixed my watch with it. That was something I ran into.
Right, which you couldn't do on Arch.
Correct. Yeah.
Huh.
What? Ubuntu do what Arch can't, I guess.
I suppose this time around. I tend to run into issues. Of course, everybody runs into issues with Arch, but it's my go-to.
That's the point.
Yeah, that is the point. Everything has to be a point release ahead of everything else, and the Android tool, specifically Fast Boot, was something wrong with it. And I was just trying to reflash my watch with Asteroid again and couldn't do it. reached out to the team. They're like, oh, yep, you're probably on Arch, aren't you? I said, yeah, by the way, I am, of course. So I had actually a good reason to plug in a drive, load up a live, distro, and the timing worked out great.
Little older version on the Ubuntu?
It must be. I didn't look at the numbers.
Yeah.
But it worked. I didn't have to fuss with anything. Just plugged it in, went to fastboot, and two commands. I'm running Asteroid OS.
Yeah. That is the quintessential Ubuntu experience when they nail that, is you just want to do something. You don't want to spend a lot of time researching how to make it work, and it just kind of works out of the box.
That's what's always so exciting about the fresh release and just seeing how it advances, because, the things you got used to only on your rolling system suddenly show up in this otherwise very stable environment where things have been ironed out, maybe patched if they need to be.
Right,
and,
right.
Once that gets a little more popularity, all those guides out there for whatever random thing you suddenly want to do on a whim, they'll probably work with it too.
I hope. I hope so. Especially when the LTS lands, because the stuff that they're baking into this, it's going to be really nice in an LTS. So I'm curious, Wes, what your experiences were on kicking the tires and trying to get the ISOs and, all of the above with 2310.
Oh, actually, I really enjoyed the installer. I didn't have any problems with it. I probably have done 3 or 4 installs now because I wanted to play with the encryption stuff. I wanted to play with ZFS. It seems like the ZFS setup, it's nice to see it back, just for starters.
Yes, it is.
Just worked. It seems like it's a simpler setup than how they had before. I think now they just still have a boot pool and a root pool, but I didn't see the complicated layout that we'd seen in the previous iteration, for better or for worse. I haven't put it through any paces or anything, but for the ZFS lovers out there, which includes me, nice to see. Overall, we talked a bit about the TPM stuff. There seems like there's some interesting desires on Canonical's part to include more automation and sort of sameness with the server side in the desktop. And as someone who still thinks an Ubuntu server can be a really great option, it's nice seeing that. They've added NetPlan in here, which I think a lot of people are kind of rolling their eyes about, and maybe have mixed feelings on NetPlan. But at a high level, it's some YAML you can write to configure your network, and then NetPlan has renderers, which includes systemd network D, but also includes Network Manager. So when you install it, the NetPlan conf is super simple for the desktop. It's just, hey, use Network Manager, and the Network Manager uses its,
it does its thing.
Yeah, it does its thing. So it's not getting in the way. But if you are used to using NetPlan from your Ubuntu server experience, you've now got an easy way to apply that on the desktop. They're also now playing more with auto install support, so you can more directly install with the new generation of installers, just sort of pre-configure how you want your OS to be installed.
Always nice.
And they're adding more support for Cloud Init, which is used a ton in cloud and virtual environments. So you can kind of specify a Cloud Init file, and on the first boot of your new machine, it'll run that and apply a bunch of stuff. So you could have it configured to be the spin or variant that you want. It could turn into Ubuntu for you.
Could be great on a VPS.
Yeah, or it could get Nix pre-installed. Whatever sort of customizations you need to turn it into the machine that you want, and maybe that includes sort of a layer of customizability or parameterization based on which machines get which cloud in it. Super popular in those environments, and now again, looks like there's going to be more support for that on the desktop. Which maybe your average desktop user isn't going to but I think it's neat to see, especially if you're going to be deploying a lot of this stuff.
And, flavors and respins can use that stuff to provide standardized experiences that are more consistent now and using the upstream tooling, which is good.
I was also just really pleased as a, I don't know, you're good at playing a lot with the Gnome extensions. I mean, I like it too, but
I got to push all the buttons. Yeah.
When I end up using Gnome, for any length of time, it tends to be on systems that I'm not daily driving,
right,
or I'm coming back to, and I just want something simple.
You usually daily drive Plasma.
Yeah, at least at the moment.
Yeah.
So I like knowing that I can have a really easy base that just works. And to be clear, these days, stock Gnome does that for me too. Mm-hmm. But just the little bits, the built-in tiling, some of the little layers that 2310 has.
The dock, whatever they call their launcher, it's nice. Yes. It works. It's functional.
Yes, I would have no qualms. I'd be quite pleased about walking up to a random machine I needed to use and having it be 2310.
Totally. I agree. I really found this to be an enlightening experience because I came directly from Windows 11.
Right.
Guys, it has been a long time since I've made that switch. And I did it on the XPS.
That's great.
So I could AB it.
It's like your very first switch.
Yeah. And my goodness, is desktop Linux, especially Ubuntu's desktop Linux, a breath of fresh air after that experience. You know, like no upsells and just it runs a lot better. It's cleaner. It's immediately more functional. It is the installer compared to the Windows 11 installer is modern, smooth, clean, easy to understand. I like that minimum is the new default.
Oh, yes. It's been a long time coming.
Yes. I think that's a good move. You can change it if you like, but I like minimal being the default. I like that ZFS is back, baby. That was great to see. And coming from the Windows 11 experience, not that I really minded Windows 11. It was a lot better than I expected.
Yeah.
But it took me back to a sensation I haven't had in a long time where it's like, oh, these guys have done it better. They've figured it out and they're doing it better. And you combine that with Gnome 45, it is such a good release. It is so refined. The quick settings menu has really come into its own. The tail scale extension now integrates into the quick settings menu.
Oh.
Fancy.
Oh yeah, guys. It was really, really nice. And so it was a different bar for me to judge it by. And on the coming from the commercial side to Ubuntu 23.10, it was just exceptionally cleaner and smoother and felt more modern. And I like now that they come up, light, dark, and choose your accent color. Mm-hmm. And it works well. They got some interesting backgrounds in there. And my overall kind of impressions were pretty solid on that. It felt like a nice middle point between going with a really kind of enthusiast, maybe like an Arch install with i3 or even Pop! OS with the tiling extension. It felt like a middle point between what was commercial Windows and how far you could go with desktop Linux. And I feel like it's a new Ubuntu in a way. It harkens back to some of the older releases of Ubuntu where they're pushing a couple of things that the other distros aren't doing. So there's a little bit of difference here, and they've taken the extra time to make it a little nicer and bundle a few things in there. And they've nailed some of the core experiences again. And it's like the desktop team from 5 years ago made this version of Ubuntu. It has to be one of the best desktop releases I've ever seen, in my opinion. And it's in part the heavy lift here is Gnome 45. But I think it's also the refinement and improvement with the snaps. It's their custom applications coming together. It's Linux 6.5. That's a big part of it too. And the new Mesa and all of that really presenting a fluid, smooth, well-refined system that if you kind of just put aside like what it's using to launch the applications and if Flutter's being used to run, if you just judge it based on if it's functional and the experience is good, I felt like it checked all the boxes. And I'm really, really, really looking forward now to the LTS. Because if they just take this winning recipe and rev everything, and they don't have to do anything new, they don't have to do anything wild, there doesn't have to be any crazy new experimental feature.
Right, just bug fix, polish.
That's going to be a great LTS. That's going to be one of the best desktop LTSs in years.
I'm feeling sort of refreshed, and it's nice, and I didn't quite expect it, but even if I'm not going to be daily driving Ubuntu anytime soon, it's just nice to feel excited and feel like, yes, they are doing things I care about as a Linux desktop user and are good for the general ecosystem.
Yeah. And now the question is, will we see the effect that we saw years ago? Kind of everybody else upping their game, just one more level, just everybody keeping at it, trying to bring the best experience and learning from each other and kind of doing that natural result of competition, kind of doing that hard work to kind of get things finished that weren't necessarily finished before. Maybe we'll see that here. Maybe not, but either way, I think it's definitely worth a try. I think it's worth a download, especially if you're an Ubuntu user, get an idea of where they're going. And could be one of those things where you use it for a while and you discover things aren't working great. Maybe we do discover something there. So if somebody out there runs into those issues, let us know. You never know. Maybe there's something we didn't catch. linuxunplugged.com/contact. I'm going to keep it installed, though, on the XPS. So I'll dual boot. I'm going to dual boot Windows and Ubuntu 23.10, and then I'll try to upgrade it to the LTS. We'll see how that goes.
Excellent. Okay, this should be a fun little field report.
Oh, let's go to Collide. KOLIDE.com/unplugged. Here's the elevator pitch. Stop problems before they become an issue for IT, right? So if they have out-of-date credentials, they don't have their patches installed, they're using a system that's non-compliant, you actually have them resolve those problems before they log in, so they're compliant before they connect to the network.
Before Brent files a bug and opens a ticket.
Mm-hmm. And it can DM them and give them instructions on how to solve some of that. And it works with desktop Linux. Can you believe it? Collide.com/unplugged.
See you next week.
You know, we didn't.
Same bad time.
We didn't talk about the
same
feedback.
bad station.
Usually,
Show's over already. See.
yeah, see you guys. Hold on. Usually, are you comfortable taking this? Do you want to set me up, Brent? How do you feel about this? We probably should have covered that.
Yeah, I think I'll set you up because
Okay.
you know the topic a little bit more, but I'm happy to throw it your way.
Here we go. In the 3s and a 2s.
Now, in podcast land, there are a few exciting things happening, and Fountain is one of them. Chris, I think the 1.0 is coming soon? Can
It
you
is
fill us in?
nigh. It is. This is really neat to see because the Fountain app has just had rapid pace development, and the dev team is getting close to 1.0, and they have reached out and they're asking for the unplugged audience to boost in with a killer feature or improvement they want to see in Fountain 1.0. We got a little bit longer in the release cycle, and so the dev team's going to watch the boosts.
Oh, fun.
And they'll look for suggestions so you can support the show and give the Fountain team your feedback on if you left Fountain for some reason, let them know why. Be nice about it, but let them know why. They'll be monitoring this episode's boost and maybe next week's episode's boost specifically to see your feedback. Because we have a real chance here to get this thing into a real nice 1.0 polished shape. That could be pretty great. So please let us know what you think.
And speaking of boosts,
Boostagram. We do have some boosts, and Chip84 came in with 372,093 sats, making him our baller. Coming in with the Fountain app saying, here's a little value for the recent hard work and what would have been my gas money for Linux Fest Northwest.
Aww.
I know. I wish I could have made it to the meetups, but I hope to meet you guys in the spring. I really enjoyed the Windows Challenge episodes. I've been full-timing desktop Linux for years, but I appreciate the check-in from a Linux user's perspective. If you guys had to give up Linux, knowing what you now know, would you pick Windows or the Mac? All right, so hypothetical.
Well, we haven't done the Mac challenge yet, have we?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a little more expensive.
I'm okay to lease one for a week.
Yeah, if that were, maybe that would be the way to do it, right? Is to lease it, because that's the problem. Is you got to have Mac hardware or Hackintosh it. What about you, Wes? Would you go to Windows 11 and WSL it up? Would you do the Mac, and why? And which and why?
I might have both. If I wasn't a Linux user, I think I'd probably have Windows at home. I'd probably have a gaming rig set up. I'd probably be using Windows. I'd probably have figured out how to be more of a Windows power user, especially because I'd have a lot more like pure Linux stuff available to me now. But I think I'd still remain really darn tempted to have mobile Mac hardware, just because what machine could I get to compete with some of those Apple ones?
Both is a good hedge. I hadn't thought of both. What about
might be cheating, though.
What about you, Jeff? What would you Windows or Windows or Mac if you couldn't use Linux?
That is absolutely cheating, Wes. I'd have to go with Windows. It's what I started on. That was my computer journey. Yeah. I can't stand the DE anymore, even though I use Windows-esque Plasma. But, oh gosh, I use it every day at work. I mean, I at least know it well enough, and I can still, bulldoze through it.
Yeah. Okay, Brentley, what about you? Would you use, if you could only use one, which one would you pick?
Is BSD an option?
That was going to be my choice.
Right.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
I think I would choose Mac for, at least two reasons. One, hardware. Like, it just seems like they're way ahead in hardware. But if we're talking strictly software, then I feel like many more users that are like-minded to us seem to flock over there. And so a lot of, package managers and such that are third party just feel super comfortable over there. Nix, for instance, you can use Nix over there pretty easily. And true. It just, to me, feels like that's where you would, if everyone all of a sudden tomorrow was forced to make that choice, I think we'd find our people over there more so than on the Windows side. But that's just a hunch.
I was trying to debate what feels more locked down and which one's going in a direction I like more or less. That's what kind of makes me a little nervous about Mac OS.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I could have a VM or a WSL environment and have full Linux, or as Brent's saying, Nix does work well.
Yeah.
But I feel like I like Docker on Mac OS less than I like the Docker.
Okay.
Even if you're still using Docker Desktop hooked up to WSL, and I feel like again you have more options. So I'm a little torn.
If I were picking probably on software, I would probably pick Mac OS. But unlike you boys, I don't think I'd end up with the Mac because of the hardware. I think I would end up with a Windows workstation with a PC tower that I could have 7 disks and I could have a GPU or 2 and I could have some PCI cards. And I would just, because you could make that setup work with Windows, right? I could put Windows on my NIC station upstairs and it would work. I couldn't put Mac OS on there. And ultimately, I can live with window management shortcomings. I can get third-party utilities. I can adapt my workflow. But what I can't solve for is you can only buy a handful of Macs, and if they don't offer what you want, then you're SOL. And I can't solve for that. So I think I'd be forced to use Windows, and then I would just use the crap out of WSL and stuff like that, assuming it existed in this world.
Can we go back to Linux now?
Yeah, I'm ready to go back, Chip. That was rough, but thank you very much for the baller boost this week. We really appreciate the support and the value. The episode, it had its people loved it, people hated it, so I appreciate the people that liked it stepping up.
T Morgan 497 boosts in with 65,109 sats.
I hoard that which your kind covet.
Hello from the manufacturing world, where we are pretty much locked into using Windows because our CAD software only works with Windows. But I dabble with Linux at home and love listening to the show. Here's a zip code boost for you.
The CAD thing's that's a common thing we hear from Morgan. That is a problem. Now, what do you got there, Wes, on the old map?
65109 appears to be a postal code in Cole County, Missouri, including the city of Jefferson City.
Well, hello, Jefferson City, Missouri, or Cole County at least. Thank you for boosting in. Appreciate it.
OP1984 boosted in with 50,000 sats from Fountain as well. Finally getting caught up after not being able to listen for a few days. Seriously, one good-hearted ribbing about saying something nice about Windows and you take it to the extreme and actually run this garbage OS? Maybe a bit bitter about Windows. It tends to make my work life a nightmare sometimes. Well, in recognition of your suffering for an entire week, masochism much, I'm sending the majority of my stack as a thanks. May these meager sats bring you comfort during your recovery.
Aw.
Thank you, Oppie. Now that right there is the value for value system in work. Oppie started that ball rolling, and he came back with the follow-up when we executed on it. Thank you, sir. It was kind of fun. Karasia comes in with 22,666 sats using Podverse. I actually run Jellyfin and Plex at the same time, mostly because I'm in transition and still need that local download enough to struggle bus through Plex. I also run it on a 9th gen 1-liter PC from Lenovo. Cost me about $75 with 16 gigs of RAM. Nice.
Wow. All right.
That's a great deal.
Yeah. Sorry, Raspberry Pi, that shortage went on for too long. And these used 1-liter PCs are better for around the same price and better for the environment. Thank you for making me feel like I'm not the only one running Jellyfin and Plex at the same time. I feel a little less weird now.
No, I mean, it's great. They work well together. You can point them at the same library.
Exactly.
And I think, be a purist if you want, but you don't have to be. And maybe it's still useful to have Plex in your ecosystem for that one weird TV that has better support, or for your family and friends. I feel like I feel less bad about that, or less worried about the sort of lock-in and where they're going to go if you at least have Jellyfin ready to go as a backup if you need it.
That's true. It is.
Moononite boosts in with 5,000 sats. Just says boost to win.
Yeah, thank you, Moononite, for the boost. We appreciate it.
Show mascot the Golden Dragon comes in with a row of ducks. Here's an idea for no corporation tax. Merry Nixmas. Maybe give Debian thanks. Arch the Penguin sings.
Oh, Dragon.
Let's get a singing penguin. You know what, though, Dragon? The one theme I'm seeing across all these boosts, have you guys noticed the one theme that keeps coming up over and over again? Debian.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
They always mention Debian. Everybody keeps saying we need to do something with Debian. What? Boost in and tell us what? You know, it's like you go to a really well-built house and you tour the well-built house, but there's like nothing in there. So you're just like walking around. You're like, so this is the great foundation. These are the walls. They're great, aren't they? Kitchen. You know, like it's good. It's good. But what do we dig our teeth into? What do you dig your teeth into? Everybody's been to the Debian Park. So what do we tell people about?
That Garage Notes PC needs an operating system.
I was thinking Nix, but
Jeff.
Debian, you know,
Yeah.
you know, sounds like Jeff just signed himself up for another task. We'll put that next cloud.
It's not on the list.
I mean, plus if
Not
there's
yet.
anything Debian's known for, right? It's you installed and it just works, and then you never update it, and then you'll get to find like a 10-year-old Debian PC, and we'll play with it.
You know,
later in the show.
I didn't even mention in the 2310 review. Absolutely gave it a spin on the Atari VCS
Oh, good.
that Eric sent in, and it worked great. I need to put a bigger disc in there to really take it seriously, but 2310's rocking on the Atari VCS right now, so I'm happy. So Golden Dragon, looking forward to seeing you at the Minifest next weekend. I bet, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Golden Dragon's in studio for the next episode of the show.
Ooh,
Here's
that's
hoping.
exciting. I mean, let's hope I'm in the studio for next episode.
My
too,
God.
right? We got a boost from Sir Alex Gates, 5,000 sats. Podman on Windows is so much better than Docker Desktop. It's baffling.
This
And
is
I
good
feel
to
like-
hear.
Yeah, that was suggested to me when I was struggling with, when I was mentioning my Docker issues. And I feel like that was a bit of a miss from us. So maybe we'll have to follow up on that.
Aw, Windows homework.
You know, I do still have it installed.
Well, it's Chris's job then. Get to it, Chris.
And Podman is pretty great.
PegDot came in with 3,333 sats, and he said, damn you, Chris. I just can't listen to Take My Breath Away without substituting breath with Brent. Take my Brent away.
Oh my goodness.
Please don't.
Okay, well, remix coming, right?
AI remix, of course.
Forward Humor boosts in with 6,666 sats, which are actually 3 duck rows.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do it then. I'm always, looking for an excuse to bust the ducks out. Bust the ducks.
I've been listening for a while and just want to know, where the heck are the razor ads? You know your listeners have hair trimming needs as well. Where's my flippin' razor discount code?
Geeks Razors, guys. Let's go to geeks.com/I don't know.
Neckbeards don't shave.
Yeah, right. I think that's what it is we encourage not shaving amongst our audience.
Next, Duck, the right vendor partnerships and incentives could bring something like WSL to Linux, a Windows runtime for
Right.
Linux.
I was
that
asking
is.
about that next week if anybody thought it was possible.
Microsoft just has to see a value proposition for that dev labor investment and support. If they aren't seeing it via one-time fees or premium subscriptions, they need to see it via big vendor partnerships that have monetary value to them. It would be interesting for sure. Equally reasonable would just be applying the embedded Windows license key from BIOS, so common these days.
You know what? That is one of the smartest damn boosts in a minute. You're right. Microsoft would have to have some sort of monetary incentive, of course. Now, what's the monetary incentive for VS Code being on Linux? Could it be that same rationale? Because I'm imagining a scenario, I suppose, the most likely, which seems far-fetched now that I say it out loud, is that they're reducing investment in the legacy Windows code base. Because what is Windows 11 if not really just a continuation of the NT code base from the 90s? And at some point, right, you have to figure there's going to be a breakaway. Mac OS did it with 10. There's going to have to be a breakaway. And if they did that breakaway, perhaps the way you maintain compatibility with whatever transition you go through is by creating that Windows subsystem that maybe you publish it on the new version of Windows, and you also publish it for desktop Linux, perhaps. But that's pretty far-fetched now that I say it out loud, and I agree that the monetary incentive or a big partner would be the much more logical reason.
Well, Forward Humor had a question as well. Hey guys, I remember hearing you talk a few times about upgrading your production machine to NixOS. I'm curious if you've done this yet. If so, what are you using for a remote UI connection to it? Chris, I know you've talked about using RDP for this in the past. Is that still your solution on Nix? I've struggled to make this work in Nix and would love any feedback.
We did play with RDP for a minute, and it really came down to the client. Although I think Romania may be one to try again, but the clients were really hit and miss, and so it was not deemed reliable enough for we're remote, we got to operate the stream, we want it to be flawless, so we're going to use X solution, and nothing really came down to the perfect solution. However, we did pick up a PyKVM, and one of our projects, if we get to it this week, is to implement the PyKVM on the OBS machine.
Yeah.
And you can get them off eBay for pretty good price. And I think maybe that is the ultimate solution, because if the system wasn't booting, I would want to see the console screen and that kind of thing. So I think for a system as important as that, and if you're in Texas and you're trying to do a show or something, you want to be able to just see what's going on. And so PyKVM, I believe, will be our solution there. But what are you thinking, Jeff?
I would just recommend for basic remote desktop stuff, Sunshine. Mm-hmm. Just use the gaming streaming platform, Sunshine or Sunlight? Moonlight. Well, Moonlight's the client, and I believe Sunshine is the server. Okay.
Also, RustDesk has improved Wayland support now, and they just did another post-Wayland release, so RustDesk could be another possible solution now.
Gosh, this last bit, forward notes, we've not had any luck making it work in the Nix Nerds group. I've never seen them stump before, huh? I think we'll just have to play with it, because now I'm curious.
Yeah. You could bypass it with a PyKVM. Could take a look at RustDesk or Sunshine and Moonlight.
Let us know what works.
Ren came in with 3,521 sats, simply saying, hey, Dutch zip code boost. Go podcasting, and greetings from Utrecht.
Coming in hot with the boost.
Well, yeah, there's not much
I traveled to the Netherlands one time. Yeah, it kind of gives it away, doesn't it?
Yeah, Brent, would you say the name of the city again?
Utrecht?
Yeah.
Well, it has a French ring to it because of me.
Hello, Utrecht, Netherlands. Thank you for boosting in. Appreciate that. And the opportunity to learn about a new place.
We love it.
We do. I love the locations. Vectron comes in with 9,001 sat from Podverse. Hi from Cologne. Am I saying that right? Is it Cologne? You don't know?
I would say ask your resident Brent.
Cologne. Hello from Cologne.
Cologne.
No, you had it the first time, Chris.
Well, because it is spelled like Cologne. All right. Let me see. Yep. They write, hi from Cologne. No Nix November was mostly a joke, referring to No Nut November. I've also heard about Sober October, and, there's all these kinds of things. You're right, though. Immutable systems are very interesting right now. I'm planning to check out Nix and try it on a secondary machine soon. But I've landed a new job that involves Linux rather than Windows last year, and I was kind of motivated by listening to Jupiter Broadcasting for so many years. So thanks for that. Well, Vectron, thank you for the boost and the value back. We really do appreciate it. Each boost is not only a great motivational note, because we're always sharing them back and forth. They're like, yeah, but also, it all together really adds up to genuine support of each production.
Gene Bean boosts in with 4,444 sats across 2 ducks.
Hello, Gene. Thank you for boosting in. Let's give him a row.
Just wanted y'all to know that Chocolatey has always been a business. The website has, for sure, gotten more corporate over the years, but I think that's because they needed a way to make users aware of the bits that they had beyond the community edition. The commercial bits are pretty cool, actually, and something I think y'all would appreciate. Rob Reynolds started and runs Chocolatey, and I'd be happy to make an introduction if you'd like to talk to him more. I know it's not Linux, but there's some really nice stuff there, including bits the self-hosting community might benefit from.
Introduction has been made, and I introduced myself and offered him to come on the show for a quick interview, and just thought, let's talk about it from a Linux user's perspective. What is it like building a package manager for Windows, maintaining that huge repo? And, something we're not really familiar with is how do you commercialize a package manager? So if they want to take us up on that, we'll definitely do that.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bane. Second duck here. If you do the No Corporate November or something like it, maybe that's when y'all could do the Gentoo install that's been talked about off and on. All right.
That's been done
with one
2-3 times.
Gene Bean, gives us some great stuff, and
coming in with the Gentoo. How do you even make that interesting? Gene, tell me that. How do you make that interesting? However, Are you boys feeling like the No Corporate November pressure now coming? Like
yes.
it's being brought up a lot. Like we might have to do this now. I feel like we're on the precipice. We're on the precipice. If we get a good solid idea or one more good solid boost suggestion, I think we're going to do it. And we've played around with the Gen 2 thing over the years on and off. I think we've done some live streams.
I have some horrible memories.
Yeah. What I was wondering is like distro speed racing, like distro install speed racing with the end goal of like a desktop that's doing XYZ. You know, maybe it's like on your tailnet and you've got something installed and ready to go. Like a speed race would be kind of fun, but again, it's a pretty visual thing. So we'd have to think about it a little bit.
Well, Gene once came in with 3 rows of ducks and created a problem, but DexBot this week came in with 6666 Satoshis.
Ooh, okay.
And that was, I think, on purpose.
A spooky Halloween boost.
Saying, okay, y'all. Okay, but y'all got a link to that cool Windows sound remix that you had last week. A lot of your experiences mirror mine with Windows. I use Linux and Mac OS at home, and I'm a Mac main in a Windows world at work. Thanks for that absolute oddball of a LUP episode.
I'm glad to hear people liked it. I've heard a lot of, I considered skipping it, and then I checked it out, and I really enjoyed it. I've heard a lot of that, too. Like, a Windows episode. It's just called the Windows XP Remix. I don't actually know. You can go on YouTube, and there's a lot of bad ones, and that was the best one I could find.
We also, Chris, you sent me a soundboard of a ton of historical clips and stuff. That was very fun to go through. Some of them, actually, I hadn't heard before.
Those are on archive.org. A lot of the Windows versions sounds are all archived on Archive. So I was able to just go to archive.org and find a lot of them. Pretty convenient, actually. All right, moving right along. Thank you very much, DX. We appreciate it. Kmog came in with 12,345 sats. He says the Windows challenge... Yuck. Skip. Just kidding. Spaceballs boost.
So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the stupidest combination I ever heard in my life.
I love this is becoming a thing.
VT52 boosts in with 13,334 sats. Well, I've gone and done it. Still twiddling knobs, but have the Wise terminal up and running. And then looks like we've got a little link to a Proton URL, which I'm hoping is a picture.
Yeah, it's as awesome as you could possibly imagine. It is a classic 4x3 CRT terminal screen with green and white display, and he has on there like notes.jupiterbroadcasting.com. Wow, notes.jupiterbroadcasting.com renders on this Wise terminal. That's amazing. And it's got that glow to it that those old displays had. This would be such an incredible note system if you could somehow run Obsidian. Really one of my favorite boosts of the week. I shared it with the boys the moment it came in. We all get them in our Albi extension, but then like some of them we also share via chat. And this was when I was like, we have the best audience ever, because it is just completely nonsensical. It is totally a waste of time. And yet, love that he did this. And it's exactly the kind of project I'd like to do.
And look at these deets that VT passed along. Hard-won advice for anyone going this route. Resist the urge to turn on all the features and max out line speed. Like good barbecue, start low and slow, VT100, 9600 baud. And some useful tools for troubleshooting, Minicom, set serial, stat serial, and VT test. And then as a little bonus here, VT sends us to a teeny tiny ESP-based board that pretends to be a modem connected to your serial port and lets you dial in to remote TCP endpoints.
This is so great. We'll have a link in the show notes. Listener, you have to go look at this if you like these ESP devices. The parallel port's the biggest part. It's a big old, like, standard parallel port, and then hanging off the back of that is a little ESP board with a little connector on the other end for a wire. And it just apparently supports between 300 and, like, 11500 baud speeds. It emulates as a Hayes modem, and it accepts the classic AT commands that you could do for a modem. I mean, Is there anything better in the whole world than an ESP that's pretending to be a classic modem on a parallel port?
Does it come with a speaker? I want noise.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. You know, little, even if it's just like an MP3 that it's playing, that would be. Wow. Thank you, VT.
Cospelin boosted in 3,690 sats from Fountain. I was afraid of the Windows show, but after all the CLI stories, I don't feel as dirty listening now.
That's true. Wes did save us with some good command line geekery. I really do appreciate that. The facial hair comes in with 3,300 and sats. And he said, I know I missed the privacy and security episode, but I wanted to bring up that it's been a year and a change since the release of the Flipper Zero.
Oh, yeah, those look fun.
Have you changed your opinion on the device? You know, I have been hearing really good things about the Flipper Zero. I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I'd really appreciate feedback from the audience. Jeff, have you played with the Flipper? Seen the Flipper?
Seen plenty of videos on it.
Yeah.
Didn't someone in the mobile room have one and got to play with one? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Bite, do you want to give us an update on your thoughts on it?
It is mainly the firmware and the programs that people write for it that makes it so versatile. It's just a platform where they unlocked almost everything for it, keeping it legal. There are some people that created some firmwares to fully unlock it. And yeah, the possibilities are endless with it. It's really an interesting thing.
There you go. And you've had it for 6 months? More? Longer? Oh, you had it for a year almost?
A bit longer, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Bearded Tech comes in with 10,000 sats, and this one's a live boost. Live boost during 532. I'm currently typing to you from Windows 11 using WSL2 for managing my servers.
All right.
I run VS Code via WSL2 and via Code Server. I stick around on Windows to play Fortnite with the kids, but dual boot the Lizard OS Tumbleweed when I feel all windowed out.
Right, I know that feeling.
We all do.
Thank you, Bearded Tech. Appreciate the live boost. Ghost Mode also came in below the 2,000 cutoff, but just said, I'm also running Plex and Jellyfin, but I'm the only one using Jellyfin.
Hey, we've got a club going.
So we had 20 total boosters this episode, and we brought in 621,612 sats. That's a fantastic one. Thank you, everybody, for supporting this production of the show. We really could go on the entire episode about what it means to us and about how it's helping us make plans for the future, but I'll save you the long-winded speech and just say it makes a big difference, and we really appreciate everybody who has the time and the means to support via value for value, either time, talent, or treasure. If you'd like to boost in, it's really fun. We love those. You can get a new podcast app at podcastapps.com. Like I mentioned, Fountain's really close to 1.0. Also, I don't know if you boys have heard, lead Podverse developer has just gone full-time for the next 3 months. They're taking a 3-month hiatus from work to go full-time on Podverse.
That is very exciting.
Yeah,
that's impressive. Things
are going to be cooking, and PodFans is just around the corner. It's a progressive web app that is just loaded with cool features. So many good things going on. New podcast app or podcastapps.com you can boost directly in, or you can boost in from the web using either fountain.fm or you boost in with the web if you don't want to switch podcast apps. You can do it with fountain.fm or the podcast index. We'll have links in the show notes. And a tremendous thank you to our members. We're really focused on trying to provide extra value to our members to unplugcore.com, where you can support all the shows at Jupiter.party. We don't mention it very often, but I will say, if you haven't become a member yet, it's worth subscribing and just getting the last few bootleg versions of the live stream, because there's a lot of content in there that I think is pretty good. And it's stuff that we've worked hard to include for you, news stories, discussions. You know, we talked about today about, one day Gnome eventually switching to Wayland by default and what the impact of that be. There's some good conversation in there that's available for our members that we put in there as a thank you at unpluggedcore.com or jupiter.party. Today's pick was inspired by a little troubleshooting. You know, you're trying out a new distro. There's always things you just kind of want to keep an eye on. See if there's any errors in the log when you got a new install. And that's where tags comes in. Now, you could install tags lots of ways. It's also available as a Flatpak. And it is a simple log viewer that lets you color code the things you're looking for. And you can set multiple different colors and tags and different schemes. And then as they go by in the log file, they stand out really clear. So if you're looking for something, like maybe you want to plug in a USB device and see the output in D message specifically, and you're looking for that particular device, you can define the device you're looking for, the name, like, USB HID, whatever it might be. You put that in there, and then when it shows up in the log, it gives a nice highlighted color for you.
Okay, this looks pretty darn handy.
Lean Mean GTK4, I believe.
It's a Vala app.
Oh!
We don't have a soundboard for that, but maybe we should.
What would that be?
Boost in and let us know.
Yeah, Vala Walla. Walla. No, that's not it. That's definitely not it. Anyways, you can get it on GitHub or you can get it on FlatHub. We have a link in the show notes for tags. Nice and simple. It was just something, one of these, earlier this week, I'm like, you know what? I should tell people about this. This has been a handy little app. So we put it in there. I hope to get an opportunity to shake some hands at Linux Fest Northwest mini meetup this week. If you're going to make it, make sure you do RSVP at meetup.com/LinuxFest Northwest. We'll try to capture the essence for those of you who can't make it, which would be most of you. So we'll try to do a good job doing that. And you're always welcome to join us. Next week is sure to be a banger of a live event. We'll probably have a lot of guests in studio. And our virtual Mumble room will be open and available. You can join our Mumble room when we're live at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern at jblive.tv. And the details for Mumble are at jupiterbroadcasting.com/Mumble.
Easy peasy.
It is really easy. Anything else? Anything else in there, Wes? Is that it?
I think that's the show.
We got it?
Now it's time for Fest Prep.
Yeah, that's true. Now we just got to get Brent packed up and headed out here, I guess, right?
The drone we sent for him
week.
should be about there.
Same bad time, same bad station.
Indeed. And links to what we talked about today, well, those are over at Linux Unplugged/523, right? Is that it? Or is it 532?
532.
LinuxUnplugged.com/532. You can get our RSS feed over there, our contact form. We love your feedback. And listen to the back catalog. There, I hate to say it, are many years of episodes. Go listen to us in a younger, chipper state before we've been hardened by the world. I don't know about that, actually. All of it over at linuxunplugged.com and a bunch of great shows over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Hey, we really appreciate you listening. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you right back here next Sunday. Now, Altera, I saw a note that you had more thoughts on the TPM encryption stuff, because that was an area that we kind of kicked around, but I think we could probably go into a little more actual details if you have them.
Oh, yeah, sure. So what Canonical is doing is like incredible from a technical perspective. They have already implemented and shipped verified boot in how it's called, the IoT thing, Ubuntu Core, I think, and they're bringing that to the desktop. So the background for this is like how I got involved with all of this is like a year or so ago, we the systemd people starting like to start a meetup kind of thing, a small summit to standardize all of this. And a lot of there were some people from Canonical there, and all the time where we were like discussing, oh, we want to do this and this and this.
Right.
Half of the things that we were like discussing about, they were already shipping and already doing in Ubuntu Core with snaps. So, but basically what they have done is like they have already working verified boot. So when much like Windows and Android, it starts from the firmware and measures every component on the boot chain. So firmware, bootloader, kernel command line,
right,
the file system, and then that buys you a lot of things, but most importantly, it buys you Verity. So you can't change the file system either offline or online which is the important part. So if I have my computer running and I have an unattended boot, like you mentioned in the show, which unlocks on its own, when it unlocks on its own, I know that in the previous session, while I was like working on the system and doing whatever, installed whatever, run whatever thing, nothing like tried to change, or it was like able to change the system, like install a backdoor bootloader, or change the file system, or install a malicious binary or whatever, because all of that is verified from the boot chain onwards and signed. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of these things on the Gnome OS side, and hopefully like by next month or so I will probably have finished to gather up everything and like write a blog post about it. But Canonical is like the first that ever managed it, basically. And yeah, there's not gonna be another one on the distro side from all the other vendors. There is not gonna be another one that is anywhere near as close to shipping something as secure as this. Yeah.
Well, look at them. Nice done, Canonical team.
And thanks for the deets.
All stop, boys. All stop. Well, it's nice to see them really, like, I guess I think they had to work with a hardware partner too, right? Like they vendor teamed up too. But good to see it. It's nice because some releases in the past, it sort of felt like maybe they were a little asleep at the wheel.
I have a lot of dog JPEGs. I don't want, think of the security. I don't want to leak.
No, you want the top security for your dog JPEGs.
It also sounds like a lot of this work was happening in the background for years, and it's just kind of coming to fruition.
They have been shipping this in Ubuntu Core for years at this point, and they're planning on like transitioning the desktop to Ubuntu Core based system as well. And it's gonna be like all of this could not have been happened without all the immutability work and all of that, because snaps are like an immutable system, much like all the other distros you see. But yes, without that, it would be like basically impossible, and without Snap doing it. We have a lot of these things. We have like almost one-to-one match at this point in System D, but nobody has like put together like a commercial distro or like a generic purpose distro that does a similar thing. We have builds that we're testing with Gnome OS at the moment that do the same thing. We have like verified boot all the way to the user space, but we're still working out the details on like the user visible parts, much like Canonical is doing right now, and that's why they have like only like did disk encryption with TPM. Like they very easily can go from that to here you can set a pin, here you can like set a passphrase and a recovery key, and just the only bits that they're missing is like when you run the installer, just also add a passphrase. And when you unlock the system or like add the user, also do all these background bits, and they're basically there.
Something fun to watch.
You guys hear that? You hear that? Oh, it's the titles clock. We have to pick a title before the clock runs out, so you have until the clock stops to bang suggest your vote. And then we're unleashing the voters. So get your bang suggest out now. You have just mere moments.
You remember to feed the voters, right?
They don't get fed till after we vote.
Good point.
Otherwise, you know how that goes. They'll just be bang suggesting all day long. Oh, only a few moments left to bang suggest. I'm typing it out right now. Is it show?
At first when you started... At first, Chris, when you started this sound clip, I was listening, it was very quiet. I was listening and I was like, I thought for sure it was our user submitted theme song for Linux pump songs,
Do we have one?
The one with like the helicopter.
Oh, we can do that while we vote. All right, so everybody, you want a little...
I think we should.
Scientists recommend voting music.
Yeah, okay, here you go. Everybody go into the chat room and vote away. We have Ubuntu translation trouble, don't translate hate, how Ubuntu got its game back. This is the Wayland. Malice in Wayland, Gnome pushing Wayland. Let's see, snapping into Ubuntu. Wayland is here to stay. Never release on a Friday. Ubuntu is fluttering. We like snaps now. New era of
Leave it to
Ubuntu.
Wes to come up with something funny. Yeah.
The snappy Minotaur. Do you even snap, bro? Dial-up M for Minotaur. Snapping the haters in 2310. All right, there's lots in there to go boat from. Your boat music will only last for so long.
I like the idea. We like Snap following the Windows episode title.
Yeah.
Which is really jerking people around in the feed.
We are just jerking them all the way over here. All the way over here. People just can't keep it straight. They can't pin us down.
What's the show about?
I know. There was a funny amount of people that were like, skip. I'm not listening to the Windows show. Even that, though, it did really well numbers-wise.
That's good. It was fun to do.
It was a nice change of pace, and then it actually turned out to be the perfect like palate cleanser to do the Ubuntu review for me, which I didn't even think about until I got logged in, and I was like, oh, this is way better. This is objectively way better.
You know how you get to make a local account before you can even have the opportunity to start signing in with an online provider?
I think it's a good one for people to send their Windows friends too.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, I mean, I drive when I listen, so I can't really clip. Man, I just wanted to clip and clip and clip and just shoot them to my buddies.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those. People need to think about that before just skipping.
Yeah, a lot of these podcasting 2.0 apps have really good clipping capabilities too.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Iraq says, I just got IPFS node and
drive.
Peer-to headless instance rolling in Linode. Hell yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you for the value. Appreciate that.
What?
It's great.
That's awesome.
Do we have an update on that Peer-to headless thing?
Still out there. It's definitely getting used.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Still headless.
I'll check.
We got a huge spread of votes here.
I know.
I think we got a major problem.
Do you guys have one that you're preferring?
There's some great titles. Many?
Yeah.
I mean, Wes's We Like Snaps Now is pretty good, but
most of the Snap ones are good, but
I don't actually like them still. But
I feel similarly.
And I don't think
it is good though.
It was quite focused on snaps either.
No, it's a side point, really.
Yeah, but it is like it's more like I've learned to live with snaps now, and we can coexist happily together. It's fine. It's fine.
I still hate the folder in
could
my
be
home.
roomies.
Just get it out of my home.
I hate the mounts. I hate the mounts.
It just drives me nuts.
It's such a trivial thing. Now that the performance seems to be about equal, I'm over that, and now it's just down to the mounts.
Yeah. And the damn folder in my home. Get that thing out of there.
I can live with that because I make folders, but I would prefer not.
Yeah, exactly. I make folders. They're my folders. This is my home, not your home. This is my home. Get out of my home,
Jeff.
Okay? Don't put your shit in my home.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole point.
My place.
You gotta symlink the snap in your home to DevNull.
Yeah, my username's there first.
But this doesn't get us any closer to a title.
This beauty is a beast. I thought that was clever. But I also
think
see I'm the only one.
it's too vague for an Ubuntu review episode, I think.
You're too vague.
I think like a Minotaur one would be good.
Yeah, Minotaur, Mantic.
Oh, the film music's over.
Like
Crap. Crap.
Crap. You have the other extended version, right?
Well, that was like 4 minutes, dude.
Minotaur Amazement's pretty good.
Yeah, if you take the music away, I think technically you're tampering with the vote.
Okay, all right. I mean, in the name of democracy, and all.
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
If democracy had music, I think it'd be better.
It's only democratic when you tamper with the vote.
Imagine if all of the speakers in the nation played music on voting day until voting was over.
It'd have to be this music.
It's a big
though.
party.
Airwolf, yeah.
That gets them to give us the day off already. I mean,
people would just be getting trashed.
Make it a party
if
day.
they voted.
Celebrate. We
Right.
still have
They'd get trashed and go vote for like the crazy candidate or something. You
That'd
know?
be
vaguely
awesome.
functional democracy.
It would be actually more functional than
Some
it is
more
now.
tailgate voting.
So we get votes, you mean? People would actually vote?
Yeah, exactly.
Tailgate voting.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Hanging out in there,
We'd
getting
get so many more votes.
grilling and making it like a whole thing.
You just vote, bro? You want a beer? Yeah.
It's a holiday for everybody.
America, bro.
You got all the sorts of people setting up their tents for various types of food.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It brings the community together. That's what we need.
Right?
I was at the kids' meetup for
It's
track.
not a bad idea.
And I was like, oh, I wish I would have brought my griddle. This would be a great event. And I walk around the corner and there's a guy there with a tent and a griddle going. And I'm like,
Yes.
that guy gets it. But you know what was funny is when one of the teams got done, they just throw out entire loaves of baguette bread to the runners. Like when they get back, here's a baguette. Here's like the kids 13.
Scarf from immediately down.
Eat an entire roll of baguette. And I'm like, that's carbo loading, I guess. Yeah.
Why a baguette of all things?
A baguette?
I don't know. I mean, it's good bread. Yeah. Especially if we'll put a little butter on there.
But it seems kind of specific, doesn't it?
I think maybe they just bought I think they went into the Safeway and they were like, I'll take all of these and as many as their arm could carry. That's what they walked out with. And it was just
I'm feeding kids.
A bushel of baguettes, I suppose.
Well, I think carbs and running is a thing.
Yeah. All right, we got to get a title.
But they're not easy to share.
I'm starting to
who needs to share?
I'm starting to have a title panic attack.
And if you do, you get to say you're breaking bread.
All right, so 1 minute 20 seconds for everybody to vote. You got to go get your vote in, otherwise Chris is gonna panic.
He's already panicking. He's just gonna let it become a little more clear. Oh, titles, you're so tricky.
It's like we ask and ask and ask for good titles to be sent
and
in.
if we stop getting title up, we're just going to stop doing it live.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
We ask for all these great titles, then we get them, and then what? Then there's too many.
Yeah, then we have to do more of the same episode. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work, Jeff. Red.
See, you missed it a little bit with the Ubuntu does what ours can't. It should have been Ubuntu does.
You're totally right. You should have suggested that one, too.
I just replied to yours. I was going to suggest it. Yeah. Ubuntu does what ours don't.
It looks like there's a couple of different options for there's seed tuber as well as this headless one for Tears Arm. That's cool.
Oh, so it got a name.
It looks like there's two of them out there because our community is just that freaking rad. I haven't tried either of them yet, but I've been meaning to. Yeah, probably due for some PeerTube updates too. I wonder how they're doing.
I wouldn't mind dropping, Linode on that. That'd be great. I just haven't had time.
Yeah,
completely forgot about the project, to be fair, too.
Let's check
You haven't quite spread your seed yet, Wes?
No.
You haven't done that?
I've been playing with the IPFS podcasting stuff, but I haven't. Close to getting a nice little NixOS thing going with it.
Oh, cool. How good do those doggos do, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so we got to pick now. Music's over.
Womp.
We haven't seen a spread like this in a long time.
I know, this is a problem. All right, I'm going to do the
strength of the
Minotaur. We need a more
sophisticated
voting situation.
Strengths of the Minotaur.
Where you can vote for your favorite.
I feel like
vote for your favorite and also your second favorite.
We probably want Ubuntu in the title.
Voting.
Ubuntu Uprising. I don't know.
I mean, new era of Ubuntu is there, but if that hasn't been used, I feel like it's something might want to be used at another time. Maybe when they make a big change or for an LTS or something. Yeah.
I don't know. Is it a new era too? Maybe.
I mean, they've already kind of gone Wayland, right? But
why has it got to go like this?
Ubuntu is fluttering.
We're just in limbo. We're just stuck here.
Can one of the machines suggest some titles for us so we can get the creative juices flowing?
I mean, they already did the whole episode. Oh, wait, dang it.
That backup crew, they're killing it.
I could kind of be persuaded to new era of Ubuntu. I do like because it's got Ubuntu in the title. I did how Ubuntu got its game back, but I don't think that really fits either.
Well, discuss Flutter a bit, and Ubuntu is fluttering something.
That sounds bad, though.
True.
Does it? Butterfly kind of flutters? I don't know. I didn't get a negative connection to that, personally.
We could just go ridiculous and do We Like Snaps now.
You could throw an emoji in there while you're at it.
It's not terrible.
Since no one else really uses them, it tells you by proxy that it's Ubuntu.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But you're right, that's not great.
There must be someone. Right?
I mean, it's a little edgy because I don't know. God, it makes me tired. Picking a title makes me tired.
Right?
How many titles do you think you've come up with now in your career?
I'd say probably 33 trillion, but that's a rough guess. No, you think I'm wrong?
Fairly accurate.
I got the Snappy Minotaur in there. I know you want Ubuntu in there. Keeps it somewhat positive.
The Snappy Minotaur?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that, Wes? The Snappy Minotaur.
I could handle that, I think.
I mean, that was my first impression. I put on 22.
If we're going to lead with snaps, though, then I think we like snaps is better.
Okay.
But I see where you're going, right? But if we're going to go with snaps, I think we like snaps now is...
That's fair, yeah.
Like, if you saw that as a podcast title, you're like, what the fuck?
It definitely gets some clicks.
Ubuntu's flying colors. Did anybody in the Mumble Room get a chance to try out 2310 this week? Probably not, with the ISO being unavailable and stuff. Yeah.
I will say I like that default background, the logo and stuff for the release is good. A nice looking nerdy Minotaur.
Yeah. Well,
I installed the server edition and just could not stand it. Got rid of it and installed Tumbleweed for my new server.
Hey, at least you gave it a shot.
Look at so Jeff's got the default Budgie set up there on his. It's nice, right?
Ooh,
like it's
handsome. Yeah.
I like the wallpaper.
Yeah, it's got a good wallpaper. It's kind of a little gnome shell looking, but with a dock on the bottom and
clean,
like a clock widget in the corner.
Yep.
System tray icons in the upper right.
You liking the performance?
That's my biggest takeaway. Is it's really fast.
That's
the
great.
last time I put Ubuntu on this machine, which was not long ago, it was hard to use. It was quite hard to use. And the exact same flash drive, I mean, same exact setup. Quite different.
I really need to give it a go. Because, maybe that's Budgie's the way to go for the notes machine.
I don't know. I would have to install it and see what the gestures are like.
Sure.
Because I'm struggling to use this thing without like a proper taskbar, a Windows style taskbar on the bottom. I'm quite struggling.
I mean, the
Isn't it
dot,
funny how our
the dot under the icon isn't enough for you, Jeff?
No, not at all. The group snapping thing that Brent mentioned is actually on this as well. And I noticed that. And that was kind of cool, but
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the little icons and it's nice. It looks good, but I'm just not used to it anymore. I've done it before. It's not used to it anymore.
I'm going to try to give it a go, I think. Maybe I'll throw it on the VCS. I'll just try a few different desktops to see which one sticks. What I think I have to have, the Atari VCS OS installed. I think it's the only way to do like firmware updates and stuff. So I think, I don't know.
Can you partition that thing?
Well, I have resized it, but it's only got like a 250 gig.
Okay. Yeah.
Or even smaller. I don't know. I think it's 250. And so you got to resize that. So what I'd really like to do is put like a 2 terabyte disk in there and then resize the Atari down to like 500 gigs and then give the rest to whatever distro I
You have a lot of notes to keep on there.
I suppose I could. I mean, I just don't really. I don't know if I don't know if ultimately the VCS is the right computer for the notes. I think I could get away with something less powerful for the notes machine.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We'll see.
But how dare you?
Yeah,
it's about the style, the look.
I can't go too old though, because did you guys see that? Kernel devs are looking at dropping some of the old school PCIMA ISA style Wi-Fi adapters. The very first ones I started working with that. Haven't been used since like 2007.
The ones that didn't work in Linux anyways.
Well, they did towards the end. They did towards the end. But they're now after. That's why it kind of is like, what? Is because all those years I couldn't use it. Then they finally got support, and I didn't need it. And now I'm like getting back into retro computers that are old, and you bringing back old life into it. I'm like, and now they're getting rid of it again, and like it's like not supported again.
I just found a tutorial on how to put Amiga OS on the Atari VCS.
Wow. That's got to be great. I got to imagine that's just great. All right. Well, Mumble Room, thank you very much for hanging out with us. Always enjoy it. Thank you, especially Altera, for the extra background info. Really appreciate that chat.
Anytime.
All right. Well, everybody in there, take the rest of the day off. You showed up. You podcasted. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I found an interesting app that is a possible app pick for Android.
All right.
Shizuku.
Okay.
So what Shizuku does is it opens the system APIs for direct access with other apps.
Okay, give me an example.
So where you usually have to connect with ADB for specific actions, you can install Shizuku And then you can use another app that uses, for example, the debloater list. And then you can remove all your apps from your phone that you don't want to have without connecting it to the computer.
That is nice. Yeah, okay. I was just thinking, because I went ahead and I did the Graphene OS update to Android 14. And of course, they've done like 2-point releases. And I don't know, man. It might be a solid hour now when it does the app optimization. Because I've got nearly 400 apps now.
It's enough that I kind of worry. So I'm like, I want to do this update.
400? What are you doing?
But I also want to use my phone right now. You know, it's like
yeah. I mean, it's probably like 330. 400 might be an exaggeration. It's like 330 apps.
Even then,
way too many.
I don't fucking know what my problem is. It just happens. I don't even understand.
Ooh, this is cool. Install. Ooh, this.
Yeah,
this
basically, I open up F-Droid and I'm like, oh, new app.
Is there like an install all button for you?
That would be amazing. That would be a fun segment, dude. If there was a way to script that and just install every app from F-Droid and see how bad it F's up. I mean, you know, it'd fill up the disk eventually, but that could be a fun segment. I'd be down for that. Yeah, I don't know. I got to go through. And, you know, you can kind of manage some of it. It'll show you apps you don't use frequently and stuff, but it's not great. I need a better tool, if anybody knows of one that, like, is better than the built-in way to, like, identify apps you haven't used in a long time and then remove them.
I think the Neo backup actually does that.
Does it?
I think so.
All right, well, that's my shame. Okay, well, Mumble Room, thank you guys. Appreciate hanging out with you. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Bye now.
Yeah, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Do we have to leave them so soon?
Bye-bye.
I know.
But I missed Jeff. Oh, no, wait.
Thank you also, everybody, watching live. We've enjoyed hanging out with you. We're going to be wrapping up now, but we hope you come back next Sunday. And, of course, a big e-hug out there to all our members who are listening. Always thinking about you and appreciate you. And hope you have a great rest of your week as we wrap up here at the Unplugged headquarters. And, of course, next week is Linux Fest. I imagine it's going to be quite the show to catch live or to catch the members feed version. Should be pretty fun. Okay, see you next time.
Now, boys, are you ready to do the rigmarole? Yeah, man. Well, go on where I told you. Do like I told you. Because everything is home cooked. Look out now. Here we go. Watch it. 1, 2, 3, 4.